Hello, this is Yaakov Kronenberg from Jerusalem, and tonight we'll be doing another class in our series of classes on Gemini ascendant and Mercury in the different signs. Tonight we'll be doing Mercury in Tauras. Okay, and Mercury in Tauras is sort of a more difficult combination with a Gemini ascendant, because it comes out that in this case Mercury will fall in the 12th house, which is the house of undoing, the house of imprisonment, the house of the enemies, the house of the soul, right? Because the soul is a prisoner inside the body. So sometimes you get a very spiritual type of person when you have the ruler of 1 in 12, or sometimes you'll get a person that I'll have a career that'll be very isolating, or a career that'll be a doctor who works in a hospital, or a nurse, people who work in hospitals, or in institutions like that, in prison, people who work in prisons, prisoners also, and people who work in prisons, doctors and patients too. There's people who are always sick, that their 12th houses, it could indicate a lot of health problems. I remember my teacher always said, somebody's got a big 12th house or 6th house, you get them into medicine, because then they become the doctor and not the patient. But in any case, here we're looking at a person who has the 12th house. There's a lot of things that could also indicate researchers, people, spend their life doing research. They're all the time in the lab, or things like that. Also, writers have it a lot. I've seen numbers of writers that have the ruler in the 12th house, because again, it's an isolating profession. It's where you locked up in your room, and writing away. I know I write a lot, and I don't like to write, and I always feel like sometimes I'm in prison, because I'm sitting here alone and writing away, and it's hard sometimes. But there's people that like it. There are people that can sit all day and write, and so there's charts like that. And but in any case, again, when you have the Mercury in Taurus is again the sign of money. There's going to be a desire for money, financial security, and it's an artistic sign, right? Again, it's a connection between Mercury and Venus. So we've seen a lot of charts recently now where also when we did Taurus rising, we did Mercury rising, where the two planets are connected, Mercury and Venus, where it makes writers. And I'm going to show you another chart tonight of also of a writer who also has this connection between Mercury and Venus, which is going to give writing ability. And let's take a look at his chart, and then maybe we'll come back again to the Gemini with Taurus. So he's a writer. He's a very famous French writer. I think he also won the Nobel Prize for writing, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. But in any case, he was one of the famous writers of his period. His name was Anatole France. And he was born in Paris in 16th of April, 1844. This is a fairly older type of chart. And he had Gemini ascendant with Mercury in Taurus. I don't want to tell you, it's a very complicated chart. I don't want to get into too much again. Mostly we're here to look at the ascendant and the ruling planet. But just mention that he had 4 planets in Aries, which is a stellium, which competes with the ascendant. But he had Uranus, the Moon, Pluto, and the Sun in Aries, and he also had Jupiter in Pisces, and it's listed that all these planets basically fall in his 12th house. And so this chart is very complicated. I don't want to get into too much again. Mostly we're here to look at the ascendant and the ruling planet. But just mention that he had 4 planets in Aries, which is a stellium, which competes with the ascendant. But he had Uranus, the Moon, Pluto, and the Sun in Aries, and he also had Jupiter in Pisces, and it's listed that all these planets basically fall in his 12th house. plus also the Mercury and the Mars that are in Taurus. As he basically had almost his whole chart in the 12th house. And he was a person who Be'emet, he was his biggest enemy. This is a guy who was his biggest enemy. You see, a lot of people also, I should mention, there's a lot of people that have the ruler of 1 and 12, they're their own worst enemy, right? Because the first house is you, and you make for yourself trouble. You bring yourself into the 12th house. And you see a lot of people that have addictions and alcoholics. I've seen a lot of alcoholic charts with this combination. George Bush, the president, he has that combination. He suffered for years with a drinking problem, and a lot of charts like that have 1 and 12, and they sort of undo themselves. And he also had a tremendous history of philandering and cheating on his wife, and so he spent the last 15 years of his life in very bad shape. Everybody was mad at him, and he had lots of problems. But in any case, that's not what we're here so much for. We want to talk about that. But in any case, I guess we want to talk about that too. But in any case, we're looking at his Mercury. His Mercury is in Taurus, and he's got Venus on the ascendant. Here again, this is an artistic sign we've seen a lot. When you have Venus on the ascendant, it gives you attractiveness. It gives you a desire for a Venusian type of lifestyle, very pleasure-oriented when you have Venus on the ascendant. Which got him in a lot of trouble too. I mean, it's a nice thing. It brings you a lot of, pleasure in life, but the pleasure can also cause a lot of problems. And so he had this Venus on the ascendant, again in Gemini, which is a writing sign. So you see his Venus is connected to his Mercury. Venus is in the sign of Mercury, and his Mercury is in Taurus, is in the sign of Venus. That's what's called in astrology mutual reception. It's like the two planets are integrally connected one with the other. And as again, he can't separate his art from his thinking. They're like one. They work together. But when you have that, it sort of helps the Mercury, because the Mercury is going to go to the ascendant. And this is one of the points I want to make in his chart, the major point. I haven't talked about this before too much. But say when you have a planet in the 12th house, for example, this Mercury is in Taurus, it's in the sign of Venus, so it's the Mercury gives itself over to Venus. And so it's like the Mercury itself is on the ascendant, right? So he can use it. Normally it would be very difficult to use that Mercury because it's unconnected to the ascendant. But because Venus is on the ascendant and Mercury gives itself over to Venus, it's as if Venus is on the ascendant. And so it gave him like Venus and Mercury on the ascendant. And that's very powerful for writing, again, for artistic ability, especially artistic ability in writing. Right, but also the Venus is in Mercury, so eventually there's going to be a connection between his first house and his 12th house. It's going to link him up. So there's going to be a certain amount of sorrow and difficulties in this lifetime for him. But he was a very popular man, very successful. He wrote many books, won many awards. You see, he's got Saturn in the 10th house, right on the 10th house cusp in honor. Right, he was a very important man. He was actually helped the Jews a little along the way. He was the first guy to Emily Zola wrote a letter to protest the mistreatment of Dreyfus and to get it signed by all different artists and writers. Mr. Anatole France was the first one to sign it. So protesting the anti-Semitism in France. So he had a little connection with the Jews there. But in any case, that's his chart for tonight. Our thing isn't to go into his whole chart. We would just want to look at the ascendant and the ruling planet and what you can glean from that. And I thank everybody for listening. I wish everybody good night.